Breaking news, the Sixers could look to explore trading Paul George this summer. We also get another update about his health status for the rest of the season from Shams Charania, and one potential Sixers prospect, or maybe a wish, could potentially fall into their lap now. We'll talk about all of it, but welcome into Philly Take with RB. I'm RB. Do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the show. We will talk about the news bomb that just dropped literally a minute and a half ago. But we started off with the fact that the 76ers are now the number 5 team in the Tankathon. They are tied with the Nets, who play tonight. I don't remember who they play off the top of my head, but the Sixers in the number 5 slot after they lost to the Raptors last night. They actually out-tanked the Raptors. The Sixers actually did something good for once. And once again, the reason that we stress the importance of this is because the Sixers now have an even higher shot if they can remain not only in the top 6, but how about the top 5? As you can see right here, they have about a 23% chance greater of staying in the top 6 if they finish with a top 5 worst record. So we'll see what happens. Still 17 games to go. Can the Sixers continue to out-tank teams? We'll see what happens. But speaking of tanking, this happened earlier today. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't like to see this, man. I'll be honest, probably the consensus number 1 overall pick as of right now, but, the tournament is coming up. March Madness is about to begin, and I don't think we're going to see Cooper Flagg play in the tournament. This is terrible. Cooper Flagg seen in a wheelchair after suffering an apparent ankle injury today. Yeah, that's not good, and I saw this replay here. It's kind of tough to watch, to be honest. They said that he sustained an inversion sprain of his left ankle. It'll require x-rays and an MRI to evaluate the full extent of the injury. But as you can see here, look at the way he comes down on his ankle. Oh, yeah, that doesn't look too good. Hopefully it's just like a rolling of the ankle, an ankle sprain. Maybe he can come back, but now his status for the March Madness tournament is in jeopardy. Does he decide to come out into the draft? Who knows, right? A lot of decision-making here, but could he potentially fall to the Sixers? What if the Sixers get the number 5 pick and, some team wants to pass on Cooper Flagg? Do I see that happening? Probably not, but maybe the Sixers get the 3rd overall pick, right? And maybe a couple guys in the March Madness tournament start to outplay themselves and go crazy and maybe lead their team to the Final Four, and maybe they get put on the radar, and then a guy like Cooper Flagg, if he doesn't get to play, can slide down a couple slots. Again, wishful thinking. We'll see what happens, but really sucks that he might not be able to play in the tournament. Hopefully nothing too serious for Cooper Flagg, and I'm getting tired of all the injuries. Speaking of injuries, let's talk about one of the guys who's been injured most of the season, and that is Paul George. This report coming out a couple minutes ago from Sam Amico, Amico Hoops on Twitter. Sixers will try to trade Paul George this summer. Now, is this report bogus? Is this guy just trying to put it out there? I don't know. We'll talk about his article in a second, but I do find it very curious that a couple minutes, not even like 3 minutes after this tweet dropped, Shams Charania puts this out, okay? Sixers forward Paul George is consulting with doctors this week on treatment options for his groin and knee injuries, including a possible procedure, sources tell ESPN. A decision is expected early next week. So now Paul George is going to have a decision. Pretty much what this means is his season is over. No reason to bring Maxey back. His season should be over. We know Embiid's looking for a treatment option for his surgery. We don't know what surgery he's going to get. We don't know when he's going to come back. Maybe that could be next season. Maybe it could be midway through next season. Nobody knows. Nobody knows any treatment plans, anything. Now Paul George might have a procedure. And I do find it interesting that just a few minutes after the first initial preliminary report of Paul George being explored in trade talks this offseason comes out, we get an update about his health. Are these correlated? Maybe, maybe not. But we haven't heard anything like officially yet. Hey, the Sixers are shopping Paul George. But I do find it interesting that now the first report has come out and now he might be done for the season. So maybe he's just done with it. He wants to move on. Maybe his agency wants to move on. Daryl Morey wants to move on. I don't know, man, but the Sixers are in turmoil. Every player is needing a treatment option or needing to figure out another alternative. And if we go over to this article from Sam Amico, I'll be honest, he doesn't really say much in here. He says, source, Sixers will try to trade Paul George this summer. The Sixers will try to trade small forward Paul George this summer. An NBA source tells Hoops Wire. Should we trust Hoops Wire? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, what is it going to take to get this done, though? You know, I mean, we've constantly looked at the contracts. Paul George has 3 years left on his deal, over $52 million guaranteed every single year. And it's like, damn, man, you know, he's got a player option a couple years down the line after the next 2. But I mean, the Sixers are going to have to make some magic work if they want to move on from Paul George and maybe even Joel Embiid. They might have to start attaching draft capital. And really, the drafts that they're stocked in right now are 2028 and 2029. So do you let these contracts play out? I don't think you can, right? Because the fan base is already checked out and nobody really cares at this point. And you could see that you made a mistake, but nonetheless, I do think that Paul George being traded is much more likely this summer than Joel Embiid. But we'll have to see. The Sixers are 22-43. NBA reporter Keith Pompey at the deadline said the Hawks and Warriors were interested in trading for PG, but no deal took place. So if there was interest, I mean, you know, Paul George had a couple good games, then his value started to tank even more with how he was playing. And then before he got injured, he was playing like crap again. So honestly, man, it's just, it's a frustrating situation to be in, and it hurts and it hampers this team's future. Now, speaking of the guy who might have to make the decision, I saw this clip from Daryl Morey today, and ladies and gentlemen, I am so checked out on Daryl Morey. He was at this analytics conference. That's where we got the quote about Sixers fans being driven by anger, and it's, you know, our fault we weren't as mad at the Knicks series as the Celtics, a bunch of crap. But Daryl Morey was on an interview here with Pablo Torre. He's formerly of ESPN. I guess this is his podcast. And he asked Daryl Morey about, you know, analytics and more importantly, artificial intelligence, and if that goes into, you know, any decision making. And Daryl Morey says we absolutely use models as a vote in any decision. And I'm going to play his answer so you can hear it here. But it is very puzzling, okay?
Decision, and insert your favorite Sixers decision here. Are you asking an LLM for their input?
So we two answers there. We absolutely use models as a vote in any decision, and how much of that decision depends on, you know, how much the assumptions behind those models don't change, and their past success rate. So if you have a highly successful model for picking draft picks, and we think that the game, you know, Evan hasn't changed the rules yet, and so the game isn't changed.
Evan Wash, who's in charge of the league office,
thank you,
of defeating you.
Yes. Then the models get a lot of weight in those decisions. It turns out the LLMs do fairly well at prediction. They still are not beating human, like super forecasters they're called, like in Human Judgment Project talks about it. But they do add signal over just scouts and things like that. So we'll treat them almost like one scout. Now over time, if it's shown that they have a better track record than scouts, we might weight the LLMs or use multiple LLMs as one or two votes out of the process. So it turns out I'm building on a lot of things that Sentinel knows, and you know that you know, multi-model approaches can put you more on the decision frontier, the optimal decision frontier. And when I say that,
yeah, what in the world is this guy talking about, man? I'm starting to think that Daryl Morey used ChatGPT to build the Sixers roster this season. Like, he's talking about multi-models and LLMs, stuff that I'm not, you know, really too clear on. I mean, I know a little bit of this stuff, but I mean, did Daryl Morey just punch a bunch of numbers into a system and come out with the Sixers roster this season? That's what I'm starting to think happened. He put in a ChatGPT, should I sign Paul George? Should I sign former Houston Rockets? And they just spit out an entire roster, and that's what he did. I mean, is this for real? Like, can we get back to the point of like actually watching the games and the film and like evaluating things with our eyes? This is why we get so wrapped up in these numbers and like, oh, you know, this advanced analytics. Sure, analytics can be helpful to tell some of the story, but they don't tell the whole thing. You have to actually watch these guys play rather than, you know, going into a draft and putting in a bunch of numbers into a model and then picking this guy. So honestly, man, crazy stuff. Daryl Morey used ChatGPT to draft the Sixers roster, and that's where we're at. So maybe he can ask ChatGPT if they should trade Paul George. Do you think Paul George will be traded? Give me your prediction down below, and we'll see what happens for the rest of this season. But for now, the tank is on. Appreciate everybody for tapping in. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.